Hey folks, welcome to another Broken Meeple review, and Pandasaurus Games is now giving us Wayfinders. This is a small gateway level game that's, tackling that entry level market and is about taking your plane from a central point on a grid of tiles, 5x5, and flying it to various other spots in order to build airstrips and hangars and gain points and special powers. And it's a bit of kind of a mix between resource management and worker placement. You've got a special hangar on the side with the resources. They're laid out in groups of columns of 3, and you take turns placing workers out, and it doesn't matter where your workers are exactly in relation to other people, but as soon as you have to take your workers back, you take resources from the top of each strip, from top to bottom, and then with those resources you fly your little plane around the map. If you go into a space, you have to pay a resource to do so, unless someone's already built there, in which case you can do it for free. But then when you reach the tile that you want to do, you may build, and it will cost a certain amount of resources based on the tile you're on. There's a lot of tiles in the game, so the map's going to change up all the time, but the worker placement side is going to stay relatively the same. And of course, once you're done, as soon as somebody has built their 8th hangar, then the game ends, you count up the points and see who the winner is, and funny enough, guess what? Most points wins.
Of course!
So my knowledge of Wayfinders beforehand was actually quite limited. I barely knew what this was, and then I came across it and I thought, oh, okay, another gateway level game we could do with this, and worker placement and resource management in a gateway level game, this could be good. We've had stuff like the River from Days of Wonder in the past, but they never really took off. Okay, no pun intended. But the idea with this one is that I thought, oh, okay, small box, cutesy, colourful artwork, and a fairly simple premise. This could work. Please don't mess it up. Does it achieve that though? We'll see. Well, with this one, certainly from a rules perspective, it definitely does hit the mark. This is definitely an entry-level game. Not complicated at all. You've got 5 workers, you put them out on whatever strip you like, and obviously you're looking at the resources at the top thinking like, do I want that one first? Shall I go in this strip because I think orange is going to, the player to my right is going to take their Meeple off first, therefore I can get the resource underneath it. The resources are all generic. I mean, you've got a fuel can, a propeller, and various other airplane-related stuff that you're collecting. But as far as that's concerned, it's equal distribution, and it makes no difference. You're refilling it from a bag. There's no skewed amounts like more fuel cans than this. It's just generally a bucket load of coloured resources. Now, first off, before we get on to some of the criticisms here, we'll start with praise, and that is the gameplay is actually relatively interesting. I mean, it's a small, short, gateway level game, so it's not going to blow your mind with crazy choices and that, but it is, quite cool to have your workers on those strips and think, when are they going to pull them off? Can I get away? Can I get the strip all to myself? Oh, I'll put one there and I'll put one there. And then the player to your right then puts one on your strip. It's like, oi, what do you think you're doing? And then you're almost thinking, do they want that resource at the top? Are they just biding their time? Can I afford to put another worker out before I take mine back because I really need something else? But then you try that, you delay your time, and then they take their worker off, and it's like, oh, for crying out loud, I needed that propeller. It's stuff like that happens throughout the game, and that is cool. I like it. It's a little bit of worker placement angst without too much, tension or not too much tension or too much punishment. You know the person's there. You know that they could pull the guy off first, and then oh, will they or won't they? But it doesn't feel like they've smacked you in the face or anything. You can see it coming. And it's just, like I say, they just probably want a certain resource. If you're paying close attention to where their plane is on the map, you might even be able to figure out which resource they're gunning for. Of course, that's more with some advanced play of this. Now, the whole flying your plane around the map, I like the fact that the map is variable every time. I mean, there are 25 tiles, including the home tile, so technically 24 each game. But you don't use probably about a third of the tiles. I think you use about 2/3 of the tiles in this box, and there's another third left. And you're supposed to use 3 different colours of tiles, red, blue, and yellow, and there's scoring tiles, there's special ability tiles, and then there's resource, bonus tiles. You're supposed to use an even mix, but there's a variant where you can just do what you like. But even when you're adhering to those setup rules, the grid's going to look very different from game to game, and it's not just what abilities come out or what resource bonuses and scoring opportunities do, it's where they are on the map. Do you have this corner where it's nothing but resource bonuses? Do you have a section where it's only scoring bonuses, which means you can go there, but you're probably not going to have too many resources. You're going to go at a slow pace. You know, is there an area where it's all green tiles, in which case it's like, is there a scoring opportunity or something that helps me move through green quick? Oh yeah, there is. Maybe I should get that first and then I can go down here. And as you move, it can't be done diagonally, but because of the whole thing of, you know, if somebody else has already built in a tile, you can go there for free, you end up being able to start off with just like, oh, I'll just move my plane a little bit, until eventually, particularly in a 3 or 4 player game, it's like, and you can go all over the place and it's like pull off some interesting combos. Now, player count is a little bit of an issue because I don't think this game scales very well at all. The worker placement side does scale, fine. You have a lot of spaces with 4, slightly less with 3, less with 2. That's fine. The map doesn't change size though. So with a 2-player game, you're on this map and you can barely move anywhere without paying a lot of resources because, well, nobody's able to build anything. You know, there's only 2 of you. But there's only so much interaction. You know, one of you could go up the top left corner, the other one could go down the bottom right, and you may never see each other ever again. But then, as a free player, I think the free player is the sweet spot, you know, or a broken record. But with that one, I think you get a nice little balance of a little bit of interaction, a bit of freedom of movement, and of course some of the turnouts with the worker placement still going. 4 players I don't think works very well at all though, because when I've played a 4-player game, the worker placement doesn't feel any more tense because you've got more spaces to go to. But with the map, people are building all over the shop. Now that's fine, okay, it's like, oh, you built on my tile first, oh, you built on my tile first. There's a bit of that. But think about it. When you build on a tile, everybody can move to that tile for free, not just you. So within about a couple of turns, suddenly your movement around this map is a lot more prevalent. And like by halfway through the game, I'm able to basically start at this corner down here and potentially go all the way to the top right corner in one move.
They must have hyperjets on that thing. And what do we got on this thing? A Cuisinart?
Because there's no restriction to how far you move as long as you can afford to pay it. Well, oh look, everybody has carved out this nice path along the middle. So suddenly the whole fact that you've got these tiles in different places doesn't really matter because your plane can almost go everywhere on the map. So it loses a lot of that kind of, you know, restriction in a 4-player game. It just becomes far too open. So 3 player is definitely the way I would want to play this. But even then, it's not necessarily perfect in that regard. It just happens to be the best of a bad bunch. It's not a solo game, unfortunately. There is no solo mode in this, so, you know, sorry, none of that. But, you know, it does keep to its playtime relatively well. I mean, it says 25 to 45 minutes on the box. That's reasonably accurate. The game shouldn't take more than an hour tops with 4 players and a bit of AP and some rules teaching. But if you know what you're doing or people are speedy in that, you should be able to do a 25 to 45 minute game with 2 to 4 players. Decent. I think it's quite an accurate representation of the time. So it definitely has, apart from the player scaling issue, a lot going for it. So decent mechanics, looks nice on the table, nice and quick, pretty simple, okay? Top marks, right? Yeah, there's no game is perfect. And sadly, this does have some rather large issues when it comes to the graphic design. The components in this are pretty sweet. I mean, I'll get a few things out. Unfortunately, the bag, as good as the bag is, has it doesn't stay like taut very well. In fact, I've pretty much just pulled the string out and the string's already come out of the bag. And literally, that was before I did that. So already the string's slightly busted on my bag. So yeah, the bag's not the best of quality. But, you know, now I've got stuff leaked all over the box. Meeples are pretty standard. They are your generic plastic meeples with some tiny little hangers and a little plastic plane. You know, nothing to write home about. The resources are probably the best bit, actually. You can't see them well on the camera, but they're these little beads with the picture of the resource on them, and they're different colours. It's enough on these that colourblind people won't have a problem with the resources. Here's where you run into a bit more of a problem. The tiles. Not to say they look bad. The tiles are nice. They're colourful on the back. They're really colourful, you know, in person. They've got nice little Easter eggs on there. They've got different pictures. Some of them are repeated, but, you know, all in all, it's very pretty and a lot of colours. But this causes a problem, particularly when you're playing with a lot of people. The graphic design on this is questionable, shall we say, to say the least. On the bottom of these tiles, you have got, the costs for, the various things you do. But for some reason, in the bottom right corner, there's a picture of the island to say what colour it is. So it's yellow, green, purple, or navy blue. Hang on, what? Purple and navy blue. Seriously, when there are not enough colours to go around in this? How is that? What made you think navy blue and light mauve was a perfect colour combination? Seriously, when you've got this laid out on the board and you're looking at it, I guarantee you, multiple times in the game, you will mistake which is a dark blue and which is a light purple tile. It's not as distinguishable as you might think, especially when they're right next to each other. It's a bit of a pain, and I really don't get why they did that, because the other problem is that the islands on here don't have the symbols or any kind of symbology to denote them for colourblind people. So if you can't distinguish between yellow, mauve, dark blue, and red and green, if you can't distinguish those colours very well, good luck. You're going to have trouble with this game and then some. But as well as the dodginess of the colour island, the costs at the bottom are relatively small compared to where you put your hangars and the points value. The hangars are only tiny, and they're just a placeholder. You could have made that bit smaller, and then made the icons at the bottom much bigger, so it was easier to see what they cost. But on top of that, they flood the bottom with these dots that are the same colour as the island, but the dots are random as to where they are. They don't mean anything in the game, and I really don't get why they did that. It just clutters up the tile more, and this is the big problem. The tiles are very cluttered. You have a very cool picture. I got nothing against a cool picture, but then you've got the points value, the bonus it gives you, 4 spaces for the hangars, a picture of the island which you'll keep mistaking, the cost along the bottom along with a bucket load of dots. The colours all kind of gel together in essentially a kind of big colour mess palette or something. It just looks cluttered and busy on the board to the point where it's more difficult and fiddly to play than the game should be. And it hurts it quite a bit. This board is fine. This is where you put the workers. You just put the workers down there. I don't like the fact that it's grey, but it's an airstrip. What colour do you want it to be? But I like the fact that the resources go up here, and there's like little grooves in there so the things slide out. That's quite neat. I mean, that's a very basic component, but it does the job. But those tiles made it very difficult. And this is in a cafe, a board game cafe with good lighting and 3 of us at least being fairly able-sighted. I've got 20/20 vision since I had laser eye surgery. And if I can't make out some of the colour differences and that on there when I'm not colourblind, what do you think anybody who's got terrible sight is going to manage? In fact, one player he did, he's only sat there next to me, like literally like here to the right. That's where he is. The board's in same distance between us. He's struggling to see the different colours, the dots and all that everywhere, and it causes such aggro. Such aggro indeed. And as much as people might say, well, it's just a component or graphic design thing, it's no big deal, the rest of the game's good. Yes, the rest of the game is good, though I wouldn't say it's mind-blowing. I mean, after playing it a few times, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'll pick it up every now and again. I can recommend it for a game cafe, sort of. It certainly is pick up and teach. It certainly is simple. It certainly is light. But somebody's going to take it off the shelf, and then they're going to get like, oh my god, what's all this on the tiles? I can't see it. And it's going to put people off. So it's hard to say whether I'd recommend it for a game cafe or not. It's got the simplicity in the gameplay, just not the visual appeal. On top of that, you've got the player scaling issue anyway, so you're restricted as to what player count you really should do with that, and you've got all these. Bear in mind, you're looking at 25 tiles on this board. You've got to look at them all and go, hang on, that wants that cost. Hang on, I can't see that. Oh, that's the thing. All right, I got there. That's red, green. Is that purple or dark blue? I'm not quite sure. That sort of stuff, when you've got to continuously go through those hurdles, it's like driving, a nice little car, and you're on a very nice country road, and more often than not, you hit a pothole, and it doesn't spoil exactly your experience of the game, but it is jarring. It is still an irritation that you keep hitting the potholes. Granted, you should stay away from them, but maybe you don't get a choice. But it's kind of like that feeling. So it's kind of a mixed bag, this one. I like the mechanics. I like the colourful nature of it. I like the fact that it looks pretty. But the graphic design and the fiddliness of having everything out in front of you, the different abilities, not being able to see the costs, colourblind people having issues, it does put a bit of a downer on the experience. There is a variant at the back though, which I do recommend. It's an exploration variant. Now granted, there's no theme in this game. I mean, the fact that you're flying around and putting hangars down really means nothing. I mean, yes, it looks like a hangar. Yes, you're flying a little plane. Whoopie-doo. Other than me going around going, that's literally the only theme you're going to get in this. So this is essentially an abstract game with a cutesy theme on it. But the exploration variant, I think, actually works better than the base game. Because the base game, all the tiles are out and they're face up and you can see what you're doing. In the exploration variant, you start off with only the orthogonically adjacent tiles face up. And then when you go to a tile, the orthogonically adjacent ones to that then go face up. I think when you land. I'm not sure if it's when you move or when you land, but either way. So it is actually a bit easier on the eye, that one, because you don't have to look at 24 tiles and go, oh god, now where do I go? You only have what's there. So it's a bit more tactical at the start, and then as other tiles reveal themselves, it's like, oh, that's good, I could go to that one now. And it opens up stuff as you play, rather than saying, right, everybody stare at this board and figure out what you're doing. It's a lot better, I think. I think this variant should be the base rules. Granted, some might argue, well, somebody might just get lucky and they flip a tile and it just happens to be a great one. Yeah, but it's a 25 to 45 minute gateway level entry game. It's gonna have some luck. You want like no luck at all, go play a Splotter game and then you won't have fun.
Ah, smug mode.
But it doesn't matter if there's a bit of luck in there. I just think the variant makes it a lot easier for people to learn. And when you're making a game that's supposed to be a 45 minute or less, essentially filler game, that's good for game cafes and new people, you need it to be easy to get into. You need it to be accessible. So, all in all, I do like Wayfinders. I think it's a solid game. The component quality with, a slightly boring looking hangar and, the tiles being cluttered all over the place does hurt it quite a bit, because I'm less willing to pull it off the shelf and stick it on the table when I know that I'm going to have to tell people, look guys, I know it looks a bit like all over the shop here, but it's still a reasonable game. So I still like it. I still think it's a solid title. Just bear in mind, you might have a bit of trouble on the eye if you're colorblind, short-sighted, or have bad lighting. So it really doesn't lend itself well to that. And of course, player scaling, you're not going to have many best ways to play it. Certainly, I think 2-player is fine. 3-player is definitely the sweet spot. I don't think I'd want to play this with 4-player ever again. Obviously you've got the longest time length, but I think the freedom of movement and interaction with players is just too much. And it's not like you're directly interacting with players. It's just simply, I beat you to this tile. Hey, I built on it first. Now I get the ability. I like the idea that when you go to a tile that someone else has already built on, you pay them resources. However, you tend to find that even in a 4-player game, that doesn't happen very often. Usually when you build on a tile first, somebody else will just simply go off to a different tile. So there's one hangar on a ton of tiles rather than 2 hangars on a single tile, because most people don't want to pay a person resources. Granted, you want to give them a resource and earn a lot of points yourself, so occasionally it will happen, but from experience, most people will simply just avoid a tile that's already been built on. Maybe that's just the people I don't know, but that just seems to be an observation I've made. So, all in all, it's a fine game, just with some very annoying niggling problems. I give Wayfinders overall a 7. It's decent, doesn't blow my mind. I feel that it could have been better if, some changes were made to the graphic design, maybe like sacrifice a little bit of clutter, sacrifice a little bit of the art and a bit of the color scheme, rework the color scheme, definitely. I mean, the dark blue and the purple mountains are a pain to sift through as well. Maybe use the exploration variant as the base rules. You could house rule at your heart's content, but it's still a reliable 7. So that's it from me. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple review, and regardless of whether you've parked at my hangar or crashed into it into a ball of flame, it's still only a game. Take care, and I'll see you, hopefully, on the next Broken Meeple video.